We are anonymous. No face, no flag, no party. We exist for moments like this. When power panics, when the script collapses, and when the people behind the curtain start pointing fingers at each other. This is one of those moments. This is the story of how Stephen Miller vanished from the front lines while his wife rushed out to spin the wreckage, how Kristi Noem tried to save herself by naming names, and how Donald Trump once again proved that chaos is not a bug of his administration, it is the feature. Let's be very clear from the start. Stephen Miller is not some background staffer who got caught in a bad news cycle. He is the ideological engine of Trumpism when it comes to immigration. He is the man who designed the cruelty, normalized the language of dehumanization, and pushed ICE and DHS toward quotas, confrontation, and spectacle. This is not new. He did it in Trump's first term, and Trump handed him even more control this time around. Trump didn't just allow it. Trump wanted it. He empowered it. And then people started dying. First came the killing of Renee Good. The administration moved fast. Too fast. They labeled her a domestic terrorist. They framed the killing as justified. Conservative media swallowed it whole. The base moved on. That was supposed to be the end of it. But then came Alex Prey. Alex Prey was killed in Minnesota, and the video changed everything. Not spin, not press releases. Video, clear enough that most Americans, regardless of party, saw what it was. A state killing, no imminent threat, no justification that matched the words coming out of Washington. And yet Stephen Miller doubled down. He didn't hesitate. He didn't pause. He called Alex Prey a domestic terrorist. He called him an assassin. He claimed Alex Prey was trying to murder federal agents. J.D. Vance reposted it. The lie spread instantly. That is when the firestorm began. Protests erupted. Not just the usual marches, but disruptions. Sports games across the country were interrupted. Crowds spoke out. CEOs started breaking silence. People with money power and platforms who usually stay quiet suddenly spoke up. Republicans running for governor started dropping out of races, saying directly that they could not defend EC and DHS anymore. And looming over all of it was a government shutdown, just days away, as Democrats signaled they would block ICE and DHS funding, and Republicans refused to compromise. The pressure was immense, and when pressure hits Trump's inner circle, loyalty evaporates. Kristi Noem was suddenly under a microscope. The DHS secretary who had stood at the podium and repeated Stephen Miller's language was now being asked where those words came from. And behind the scenes, according to multiple reports, the answer was clear. The language came from Stephen Miller. The framing came from Stephen Miller. Down to the specific word choices, Axios confirmed it. The claim that Alex Prey wanted to massacre federal agents came directly from Miller. That is when the knives came out. The White House went into full panic mode. Kristi Noem started throwing Stephen Miller under the bus. Stephen Miller started deflecting blame onto Greg Bovino. Trump demoted Bovino. Tom Homan was floated as a replacement, sent in like a cleanup crew to absorb the fallout. Republican senators started openly calling for Noem to be fired. And Stephen Miller, the man who never misses a camera, suddenly wasn't there. He vanished. No press conferences, no aggressive TV hits, no defiant posture. Instead, something else happened. His wife stepped in. Katie Miller, a wannabe podcaster with proximity to power but no authority, suddenly became the voice of damage control. She took to Twitter desperately trying to spin a narrative that was already collapsing. And the internet noticed immediately. Adam Gentelson said it out loud in the way everyone was thinking it. Stephen Miller sending his podcaster wife out to do damage control is the most beta thing anyone has ever seen. Midas Touch pointed out how notable it was that she was highlighting selective comments, trying to cherry-pick language to shield her husband. But it only made things worse. Katie Miller tried to frame an OpenAI executive as some kind of radical leftist for tweeting out basic constitutional amendments. The First Amendment, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, the 14th. Just facts. Just the Constitution of the United States. And she tried to spin that as extremism. People stared at their screens in disbelief. This was the level of desperation we had reached. Then Axios dropped its report. Kristi Noem blamed the language on Stephen Miller. Publicly, Katie Miller responded by posting screenshots of Axios articles to defend her husband, highlighting lines that claimed the Minnesota operation did not follow White House guidelines established after the January 7th shooting of Renee Good. Think about that for a second. Stephen Miller pioneers the extremist rhetoric. Stephen Miller supplies the language that brands people terrorists to justify their deaths. And then when it blows up, he claims the operation didn't follow the rules he helped write. Guidelines he enforced. Quotas he demanded. And yes, there are reports, credible reports, that Stephen Miller personally calls ICE squads across the country, that he berates them, that he yells at them if they are not using reckless force, that he demands they hit a quota of 3,000 deportations a day. 3,000 a day. This is not policy. This is obsession. And when you push armed agents into volatile situations with unrealistic quotas and ideological pressure, people get hurt. People die. Katie Miller tried to argue that squads were supposed to be divided, some arresting targeted individuals, others controlling crowds. She posted it like it was a mic drop. It wasn't. It was an admission that the operation was designed for confrontation and chaos. Meanwhile, the backlash kept growing. Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican, had had enough. He went on record calling Kristi Noem incompetent. He said he had no confidence in her. None at all. He pointed out that disaster relief under Trump's second term had fallen off a cliff compared to Trump's first term. He said she wasn't even handling the basic responsibilities of her job. He reminded everyone that she once thought FEMA should be eliminated, and when a FEMA director disagreed with her, she fired him within 24 hours.
To then think that we can move on before this has been adjudicated.
Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. No, she's. I've tried to maintain confidence, but look, I've done and we'll be sharing this information. We've done a Trump 1, Trump 2 comparison of disaster relief. There's no comparison whatsoever. Trump 1 was right on with disaster recovery. You think about Matthew and Florence. And this one, she's not even handling the other part of her job. I mean, at one point, she thought FEMA should be eliminated. To give you an idea of how incompetent I think she is, she actually thought FEMA should be eliminated. And when she had a FEMA director said he didn't think that was a good idea, she fired him within 24 hours. Now she understands that that is an important part of her job. These are like amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes going into somebody who's a secretary in a cabinet level position. It's unacceptable.
Does she need to step down?
He called her thinking amateurish, assistant manager level, unacceptable for a cabinet secretary. Then he was asked about Stephen Miller, and he snapped. Stephen Miller, he said, is in the same boat. Incompetent. The guy who made stupid comments about Greenland and got the president into a mess. The guy who rushed out and labeled someone a terrorist before anyone on the ground had even been consulted. And now it's clear that label was wrong. Stephen Miller, Tillis said, never fails to live up to expectations of incompetence.
Does she need to...
Stephen Miller is in the same boat. This guy, after doing the stupid comments he made about Greenland getting the president in a difficult circumstance, is one of the people that came out publicly and said that this guy was a terrorist before he had even talked with anybody on the ground, and that's clearly not the case now. So, I mean, it's just, Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence.
When asked if they should step down, Tillis didn't hesitate. If he were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
I think he should be fired.
I'm going to leave that up to the president. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
But do you think Noem should step down?
I think Noem needs to decide what. I think if Noem looks at her body of work, I could not be. If I were in her position, I can't think of any point in pride over the last year. She's got to make her own decision, or the president does. But
let that sink in. A Republican senator saying openly that Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem should be gone, and still Trump hesitated, because this is where the rot goes deeper. This isn't just about a bad response or a botched operation. This is about ideology. Stephen Miller is not just more extreme than Trump. He is more disciplined. Trump is not an ideologue. Trump is a narcissist. He wants attention, power, loyalty, applause. Stephen Miller has an end goal: ethno-nationalism. He uses Trump as a vehicle to get there, and for years it worked. Until it didn't. Now even Trump's allies are shaken. A pro-Trump European leader, the Slovak Prime Minister, reportedly told EU leaders that he was shocked by Trump's state of mind after a meeting at Mar-a-Lago. Concerned, alarmed. This is someone who usually supports Trump on Europe, on NATO, on so-called weakness. And even he walked away disturbed, questioning the psychological state of the US president. That matters, because it shows that this chaos is not contained. It is visible. It is international. And back at home, the cover-up narrative is collapsing. People are talking about lawsuits, about Alex Prey's family suing Stephen Miller for defamation, for labeling a dead man a terrorist to justify his killing. The video evidence is not going away. The quotes are not disappearing. The screenshots are forever. Stephen Miller tried to vanish. Kristi Noem tried to point fingers. Katie Miller tried to spin. Trump tried to reshuffle. but the truth is sitting there unmoved. This administration created a system where violence was predictable, where language was weaponized, where killing first and explaining later became normalized. And now the people who designed that system are trying to escape accountability by throwing each other under the bus. Anonymous sees it, and so do millions of others. This is not about left versus right. His is about power versus people, about what happens when ideology replaces humanity and when propaganda replaces truth. Stephen Miller didn't disappear because he's innocent. He disappeared because the narrative broke. Kristi Noem didn't point fingers because she found her conscience. She did it because survival demanded it. And Trump didn't clean house because he suddenly cares. He did it because the stink got too loud. So here is the call to action. Do not forget these names. Do not let this story fade. Share this video. Talk about it. Demand accountability. Demand transparency. Demand consequences. Because if this can be covered up, if this can be spun away, then it will happen again. We are anonymous. We do not forget. And neither should you.